Meeting of council. This is our budget, mayor's budget visioning. I'd like to call our meeting to order. If everyone could please bow their head for a moment of reflection. Thank you. We have confirmation of the agenda. We do have a couple changes. I'll let Ashley tell you about them.
Thanks, Mayor Riggets. We have one addition to the agenda, item number 6.6.6, a one-time request for Parks, Recreation, and Community Services for exterior painting at the park. And then there is one change to report, item number 6.4 for recreation facility funding applications. And that's the removal of the Optimus Club of Ellis, their request for the funding of the kitchen renovation at the Rostock Hall.
Okay, so then we need a motion that the following items be added, 6.6.6, and removed. Item 6.4, as Ashley just said. So then the agenda is prepared for the July 8, 2025 meeting of council of the Township of Perth East be approved as amended. Moved by Hugh, second by Jerry. All in favor? Carried. Okay, if anyone has pecuniary interest, you can disclose that now or as our meeting moves along. Under presentations, we do not have any presentations at all, public, other presentations, or delegations. So we'll move right down to reports. And the first report we have is the 2026 Council Budget Visioning, and I'll turn it over to Mike.
Thanks, Mayor Riggets. Yeah, just quickly as it relates to report, it's not a new report. We tried to harness in some new questions as it relates to the overall questionnaire. We compiled the results that came in councilors who participated, and certainly, yeah, if there are highlights that certain councilors nuances that opinion, but nothing there that I
Okay, thank you. So I think we'll turn to page 5, which is the beginning of our budget visioning questionnaire responses. We'll do each question and just see if anyone has any more comments or if they want to add something. So the first one is under number 1, understanding of services under control of the township. What do you consider the most pressing issue facing the township at this time? Is there anything anyone would like to elaborate on for their comments or add anything else? You?
Believe it or not, I did fill this out. I have no idea where in cyberspace my response went to, but I did fill it out, and I responded pretty quickly for a change and awesome.
So do you want to comment in each of the ones and say what you said?
I think everybody gave really good one. Nothing that I really disagree with.
Okay. Anyone else? Jeremy?
What happened to you, but I'm sorry if that I didn't have any additional comments to make after I received that, but I thought I was going to be on there.
Okay. If there's no more comments for number 1 or nothing anybody wants to act on, then we'll move to this second one, services you would consider cutting. Is there anybody that would like to say anything else on any of those? Amanda?
Just more of a comment, and this comes up every year, and of course nobody likes to talk about it, and so from my perspective, like, I actually think there should be an exercise done with staff looking at where could we find savings. We haven't really done that. And it should be done from my perspective. And so I think, again, we want to try to keep the same service levels that, citizens know and expect. We also have people that move into the community that expect more services if they come from like a more urban center perhaps, but just in terms of the way things are, in terms of download from province, in terms of the rising cost for things. I just think from a due diligence standpoint, there could be an opportunity for that sort of internal exercise to take place. So I just wanted to, it's captured there written, but I wanted to verbally share that and reiterate my thoughts around that.
Okay, anyone else? Andrew?
Thank you, Marigus. I agree.
So you want Bob?
Okay, I disagree very strongly. It's not staff's job to do a counselor's job. If counselor members have items they want to bring up for discussion, that's what they should be doing. I don't think the onus needs to be put on staff to suggest that we take a snowplow off the road or whatever to save money. I've seen this asked of the county, and what are they going to come up with, right? They're working within the direction of members of council. So I don't think it's very strong opinion of this whole budget process a waste of staff time. I don't think we need to waste any more time writing reports to come up with something that you're elected to do. So work fine the way it is. We're all capable of sending emails in, asking questions, getting more information. I don't think it's staff's job to come up and say, we're going to cut this, or it's never going to happen like that, because there's always more services that are requested by the public. Many times people fall over each other, make motions happen to add whatever it is, stop signs at intersections, sidewalks, all these things that always cost more. So wouldn't waste more time in making the project.
Okay, anyone else? Amanda?
Just want to have the final word on that and just maybe provide a little bit of clarity in terms of the intention of my comment. I think where I'm coming from is we as counselors are not full-time. We rely heavily on staff expertise. They know their departments best. They are intimately involved with a lot of, if there are opportunities where, we could streamline things and find cost savings, that is 100%, in my view, an acceptable thing to ask staff to come up with. Maybe the exercise happens and they can't find streamlining. Maybe they find streamlining in other ways, but it's not necessarily big cost savings. But the fact that we have not done that exercise, to me, I think is problematic. Staff, we rely heavily on their expertise and they are immersed on this day to day. I think it would be different if this was something full time that we do, because there's a lot of inner workings that counselors are not necessarily fully informed on. And so I just, it's not to create more work on staff. I just think it's a missed opportunity if we don't do so. So I just wanted to provide clarity in terms of what the rationale. And absolutely, we do get lots of inquiries about adding services or other opportunities to make our municipality better. They don't necessarily require more costs, but I just wanted to clarify my intention. So I just wanted to share that.
Okay, anyone else? Andrew?
Thanks again, Marigus. I'm just wondering, when the time comes and there's changes and scenery of municipalities change, there's like with policy, we do policy reviews and we fine tune that. And again, the experts, like has been said, go ahead and do that. I was wondering if there's opportunities that are redundant, underutilized programs or things that could be tweaked smallly hopefully with the direction for cost savings, like specific cost savings. Sure, to setting targets for cost savings. I think that at least a look for once, see how the process works. But I'll leave it at that.
So procedurally wise.
just as it relates to the process that we undertake at the management level as it relates to overall budget, treasurer and I meet with each of the department heads as part of the operating budget, and we do review basically on a line by line basis. I don't think the managers actually really enjoy the meeting. They come in smiling but there is a lot of review that happens at that level, and we are talking about cost saving measures. We're looking at that over years. Why are we over budget this year, not the previous year? We do look at those things, and one of the things that I think all of us do from a management standpoint is we do look for opportunities to cross over within our township, but also in terms of conversation with others. We've been quite good in terms of procurement process with the county and with some of our neighbors to look for cost savings that way. A lot of the time economies of scale are useful there. So I do think what is being suggested does happen. It's not documented in a way that council sees, but this year, because of the change in the process, the mayor will be part of this conversation as well. I guess we'll get to see more of that direct conversation about operational budgets and how we are trying to stretch. I'm not sure that necessarily answered the question, but I thought it might be useful to talk more about our process.
Okay, so the process is a little different this year. So I guess what I would like is to see consensus if people want to do this during the budget process, that we see if there is a possibility to cut services or not, or what you wish to do. So who wants to proceed with what you're making a comment, Jerry?
No cuts.
Okay, so I guess those who think that we need to do cuts, who wants to do that? Who wants to look at that? Everyone put their hand up who wants to do
I
that?
just think we should clarify something because I think it's helpful in the language. We're talking about when we say the word cuts, it sounds very negative. And as a politician, of course, you don't want to be talking about that. Looking for efficiencies, ways to streamline, that's sort of what we're asking for. I'm really encouraged by what Mike has shared in terms of the process, because I don't think that that's ever been communicated to council. I'm quite perfectly fine if you, Mayor, are part of seeing some of those internal processes, but I just more so, it was just more of a comment. And so I just think it's really important from a language standpoint of like what we're asking. It's not about we're going to cut a bunch of services. That sounds horrible. It's about how can we find efficiencies and streamlining. We talk about that all the time in terms of shared services. We talk about, we do talk about this, but like sometimes like how far do we go with it? I don't know, right? And so that having this conversation has been helpful to me, but I just wanted to, again, when we're talking about language, I'm asking about finding efficiencies and streamlining. When we say cutting services, that's not necessarily the case.
Right, it just so for more clarification, I've always been involved in the budget, not as much as this year's going to be, but other years in the past, I've always sat down with the finances and with the CAO before the budget comes to council, so I have a pretty good idea what's coming and what's not coming. But so just to reword it a bit then, does council wish for staff to look into finding more efficiencies? Who is in favor of that? Who does not wish that to happen? Okay, then we'll leave it as it is. Okay, then we'll move to number 3. What services would you consider reducing? Is there anyone who has more information they'd like to give other than what they've sent in? Andrew?
Yeah, I think, thank you, Mary Gates. I think 2 and 3 are kind of the same, and that's reducing funding efficiencies. Again, I know we talk about it a little bit, and maybe even some's mentioned in the final budget presentation, but it'd be really nice to have some type of narrative going out to the public on what's been found, how things have been cost cutting or value for taxpayer money. That type of language might be nice. So reducing and cutting, it's basically the same thing. More of the reducing is obviously more feasible, but yeah, it's kind of the same bullet point really to my mind. So yes, I definitely think we should always be looking at reducing, and if things are out of date and old, then maybe they need to go on the shelf.
I do believe we are, but you know, I hear what you're saying, but I do believe that we are already looking. There's some things we can't change, and that's to do with the, I feel like I'm echoing. That's to do with the education. We can't change that. They tell us what they're going to charge. That comes through the county. The county tells us that's, and there's some of us sit around that table. The prices of some things you can't change. The price of our trucks, the fuel, the heat, the hydro. There's some things that we have no control over. So some of those things, unfortunately, we can't do anything about. Anything else on that one? Okay, what services would you consider increasing and how do you see it being funded? Amanda?
This will be sort of my final, I guess, comments for this process, but I didn't know where these really would fit. So the one comment was regarding the landfill. So a little bit concerned about landfill capacity in terms of just in future state. And I think I'm curious to see if there's opportunity for investment in diversion tactics. I know Jake probably has some stuff to share on that. I know that staff have been looking into it, but I just think it's we don't want to think about it, but I think it's really important that we start thinking about diversion tactics. And of course, sometimes that costs money, but it could actually save us money in the long term. The other piece that I wanted to put in there as well, and again, don't know how really truly viable it is, but to potentially look into traffic cams. I had sent Mike some information that I had sort of received, and I think he has some knowledge in some traffic cams in Wellington County. There's obviously like upfront costs, but then it can be an opportunity for revenue as well. Sort of my main point here was that the number one complaint that I get from the public is regarding speeding. And I really don't have a lot of good things that I can say to stop to the public because speeding is not in the jurisdiction of the municipality, and reducing speed limit isn't necessarily going to change the habits. So this is like a chronic thing that keeps happening. Again, recognizing we are a very small rural municipality, I don't know how viable this is, but I am genuinely curious. So the two things I have in there are, you know, perhaps maybe investment sort of things that would potentially cost money to implement. And again, don't know the full viability, and also curious to see if Jake has anything that he wants to add on the landfill piece. But I just think those are sort of two things top of mind for me in terms of like forward facing with the township.
Jake, you want to reply?
Yeah, with the landfill diversion, we continue to look at different approaches there. One of the things we were kind of waiting on was some direction from Blue Water around a mattress diversion program. I think their labor disputes have kind of slowed that process to some degree. So I'm still waiting on a path forward for that through them. But there's still other avenues to explore. Some of them certainly come at a cost. Pretty well every diversion approach does. There is some cost there, but you can recover that through fees as well. In terms of capacity, you're absolutely right. There's going to be an issue here as time moves along. We're continuing to collect more waste. We are obviously in the process of expanding that landfill. It's a very, very slow process, but everything we can do to keep waste out of there is positive. So staff, including myself, are continuing to look at those different approaches.
Okay, Bob?
I believe Amanda is referring to probably a third party that looks out for the automated speed enforcement. read very little bit about it, but it would be, it's a positive in reducing speed. It's a positive for those that have to pay the fines. But you see them probably around school zones where they are automated and of course they get ripped off the roadways very frequently. But I too would be interested in certain areas, but it's something that's probably more relevant than topics from the public. So if it's consensus around the table to do something like that.
Jake?
Just a quick comment around that. The cameras, we have done some preliminary legwork on kind of exploring the cost and how they would function. There's actually an approach through our LIS procurement program that those are available. I think the cost last year was around 50,000 for the initial install. But the problem is the kind of the back end, the paperwork side. There's some costs to that. So I'm not convinced necessarily with the traffic we have that they'd be a moneymaker per se. But if you can break even, it might help the issue. And then the other comment I wanted to have, my understanding is those can only be established in a school zone and a community safety zone. So to me, there's only one true location at this point that it would work for, at least on township roads. So just a couple thoughts.
Jared?
So a quick comment on the mayor. Traffic cams, this letter or email was brought to the OPP board actually meeting today. Brought up the attention of the number of police officers and inspectors that have been there. Have a discussion. There's nothing really that the OPP board could do. Nick, gentleman from Global Traffic, has made a couple of presentations. Well, that's perfect. They give a presentation. Okay, Middlesex. At any rate, it's a sales pitch, and we've done some work on it. Not a huge maker. We have done some things. The county, we've set the speed signs around the towns. We do have hours for the police that we move around, and did say that those have helped. The police have said those have really helped. So it may be worth bringing someone in just to chat about information.
Andrew?
Thank you, Mayor. Is there a justification study needs to be done for this to put these in place? But right now legislation says it's only community safety zones. But is there any other things like you have to do, like a study or anything, or any other upfront costs that?
Through the mayor, I think it's, the community safety zone is the big focus, and I think the back end piece is why a lot of smaller municipalities and Wellington County, not a smaller municipality, large municipality, have partnered with people like Global Traffic because they handle basically the cameras, they source them, they handle the ticketing, but then they take half of the revenue or whatever the contract says. And a lot of the dollars are based on volume, and in some, those that are paying attention, and I'm sure most of our councils, in some instances, it started off gangbusters in terms of being seen as a positive, and quickly turned into a negative with vandalism and the number of complaints about tickets that were 2 or 3 kilometers over limited that wasn't properly posted. So there are pros and cons, just like there are with anything in life, but it is an avenue that I know others have explored as a way to try to quell speeding, because speeding is a complaint that not just this council, but most councils hear about all over the place. But community safety zones, that would be the first step that we would have to do, is actually designate a number of community safety zones for us. But yes, if it's the wish of the council, certainly engage in trying to get some more information. Perhaps a presentation that comes in and consider.
Okay, Jeremy?
If it really.
I received 2 tickets from the state in November twice.
I drive an alternative route past that school.
That's not really working.
It is working because it's one less vehicle driving past that school. I was driving 52 and a 40, and I got a ticket twice over the course of a week. And they work, for sure they work. Whether you're slowing down or you're diverting and going a different direction, they definitely work. It's just a matter of whether or not it would make sense for us to do it. If there's only one spot we can put them, then I don't think it really makes sense. So I think the start would be to see where we could actually put them and if they're actually going to make a difference in those areas.
Thank you.
Yeah, the county, they did a report on cameras at Rubin, it's on buses. And at the end of the day, it was extremely expensive and extremely complicated to do that. It's the end of the day, there wouldn't have been money made for the cost of county and all that money. So just don't get your hopes up that it's going to make any kind of money or anything great thing, and that would be extremely expensive with the county. If you want to look at it.
Okay, so is the consensus that we have staff look into this some more? And bring back Bob?
I don't think it's necessary. I've heard information that I need in it, but, you know, nice to have one on Mill Street, but the only people that are gonna be paying the fines are those that live on Mill.
Amanda?
I just think it would be nice to be in a position to say as a counselor, hey, we've looked into this and you know what? XYZ, these are the reasons we can't do it. So if it stops right here, not really in a position to say that, but I will certainly say I advocated for it, but my fellow counselors didn't support it. So in terms of just looking into it, right? Like I want to be able to say that to people when I get complaints. Like I said, this is the number one thing that I hear from the public, and I don't have good answers for people. So from my perspective, like I would like to be in a position to meaningfully respond to people, but totally respect everyone's opinions. And I understand, like, again, recognizing again the cost. Like I don't know if this is viable, but it would be nice to be able to say that we've looked into it.
Jeremy?
In here, I press the button. Okay, you got it this time. There is going to be a letter coming to council from a local community group about some other locations that there's some speeding issues around non-public schools, around some of the Amish and Mennonite schools too. So I think there might be. I've had people reach out to me often and very frequently of late about speeding in areas where there's some of the Amish and Mennonite schools, and like by researching this, we could determine that maybe those areas are also, you know, they can also be impacted by having some sort of a safety zone around them too. So, you know, I'm in favor of at least researching it a little bit more, because there are other areas around here that people are driving 90 or 100 or 120 past schools. They just happen not to be public schools, and those children are still often scootering to school on the side of the road, and people are flying by them. And whatever mechanism we can, you know, whatever we can do to help alleviate some of that, I'd be in favor of. So I think it is worthwhile at least looking into this a little bit deeper.
Okay, so how many would wish for us to have staff look into it some more? Okay. And
Can I
then the
ask
land,
for a recorded vote, please?
it's not a vote. There's no motion. The vote is consensus. The landfill, does anyone wish to further, Amanda made comments about the landfill, and I too have concerns over the time. I won't be here when it needs a new one, but maybe I won't even be alive, I don't know. But anyway, it's something that we need to look into. I know we have been trying to divert as much as we possibly can, But, you know, at one time, we had 3 landfills. We had one in Milverton, we had one in Ellis. Those 2 have both been closed, and now we have 1. So it is something that down the road that is going to need to be really researched what happens, whether we can put more cells in the one we have, how we can keep diverting more and more stuff as time moves forward so that we can make it last as long as we wish. So I don't know if anyone else has any concerns. Jeremy? All right, anyone else? So does, I guess we'll go with consensus. Is anyone who wishes staff to look into things more?
I just want to speak to it. I know Jake has brought reports already to council like last year on this issue. I just want to sort of reiterate that I think that the timing, like a lot of landfill capacity in the province is about 10 years, they're saying. That is not a long time. That is in our lifetime. We also are seeing a lot of growth in communities. There's also interesting things happening across the border when people are trying to get rid of garbage, and there's tariffs and all sorts of things happening. I know the staff are looking into it. Staff have so much on their plate. They do so much for us, but I just think that this needs to be really prioritized. It sounds like we're waiting to hear back on a few things relating to Blue Water, but I genuinely think that we need to be prioritizing this. 10 years is not a long time. So I would be disappointed if we didn't prioritize it. Not to say that staff aren't already doing work. They are. I know that they are, but I've just been anxiously waiting for a report back. And I haven't seen anything recently. So I just think there's an opportunity here to have a discussion and have it on everyone's minds and radar. Obviously, talking about garbage is not something pleasant to think about, but it is a major service that we provide. So I know that Jake already alluded to the process that we're undergoing to expand the landfill, but that doesn't happen overnight. So I just think that we need to maybe prioritize it, or maybe get another update in so many months or what have you by the end of the year with what are some potential opportunities. Maybe there isn't maybe there aren't other opportunities, but I think that there might be.
So when I think of a true visioning session, this would be the topics that I would like to dig in for the future, like how long the gravel pit's gonna last, because we've heard about it, how long the landfill's gonna last. You know, when you're gonna work on the iron filtration system in Milverton that's been talked about for 20 years. You know, and the cost of bridges that have maybe doubled, or the fire trucks that have tripled. Like, these are the things that going forward, like Amanda has a good point. The landfill only has a limited lifetime. The province has an onerous set of rules. It would take 10 years to get something approved. You have 300 homes come to Shakespeare, well, your landfill life has drastically reduced. So I'm not sure what that looks like. Is it going to another municipality? But these are the bigger questions that I guess put more effort into than something that happens for next year. These are long-term things that have been discussed, but really the meat and potatoes haven't been. So if going forward, I would agree with that. Discussion of it.
Okay, anyone else with comments on the landfill? What does council wish to do? Do you wish to have more discussions on it? Do you wish to have more reports brought back? Do you wish to have a separate meeting to discuss it more? Have staff bring back more reports on what's going on? Bob?
Well, I really think it involves making a decision very soon about what that looks like in our municipality. So if it means sending your garbage to North Perth or West Perth, then we almost should start those discussions soon. I know that would be a political hot potato, but at some point, surely at some point, someone will realize the redundancy of 4 lower tier councils and 1 upper tier. But until that happens, you're not going to see a lot of movement on these items, right? I believe that the managers of different departments used to get together and find efficiencies. I'm hopeful that's still happening, but this one is our issue. Probably best that we deal with it ourselves, but I think there's other options that could be explored, but it is way beyond asking for a report, or an opinion. It is a very complicated issue, so I'm not sure how staff would agree to.
Yeah, and I'm taking some liberties with the meeting, knowing it's a little bit less formal. We, Perth East, engaged in conversations with the other lower tiers to talk about aggregate, knowing that that's something that we're gonna need forever too. And I think from a staff perspective, we all acknowledge that there should be a way forward, but we don't believe there's political will for that to happen across the county. And maybe we're wrong about that, but that's my perspective, and that's the perspective I've gotten from the CEOs in Perth County, in that most believe that the elected officials for the lower tiers of the county are, you got your problems, you figure them out, we got our problems, we'll figure them out. So aggregate is one that we've had some conversations, and it was a positive conversation, acknowledging the challenges we're all going to face, and that gravel pits means something, and those that own them have an advantage over a number of municipalities that do not own their gravel pits. If they're buying them directly from suppliers, that's we're getting the same rate. We've been very fortunate in Perth East, and we've been fortunate in other municipalities in Perth County. So it's never maybe gotten the focus that it needs to get. The landfill piece is they're quite similar. The lower tiers has a lot of capacity. And so it's hard, it's without involving the elected officials. And what that looks like, we have an annual municipal day where municipal councilors get together, but they're not necessarily talking about these technologies, those events in my experience. That would be the place to talk about that, but it is a very difficult hurdle to overcome, in that we're all not struggling, we're all doing the best we can to address our own problems within the building. In a lot of cases, I think there's a better solution that's out there. We just got to figure out how to do it. That's going to involve the other people sitting around this table and stuff.
Okay, Amanda?
Just to take this a one step further, because I didn't capture this in my comment, but it's related to this topic. I mean, would be extremely controversial, and the public would not probably like to do this, but I mean, there's a lot of interesting work happening from Energy and Waste, where you take a region and there's a facility, and it's not a landfill anymore, right? So there's some very interesting and innovative ways to be looking at it. I mean, you go to Europe, you go to other places. I'm not saying that is what should be done. I'm saying that this is a big issue that's going to come to a head sooner than we would like. And we just are ignoring it. So again, I think it's interesting, Mike, you brought up Municipal Day, like, they're, bringing great speakers, all of that stuff, but we need to be sort of maybe prioritizing some of these like immediate things, and how we sort of have those conversations. That's a it's going to take some major leadership internally at a staff level and at a political level, and I don't know if people really care enough to actually facilitate that, but I wanted to have this discussion. I think it's important. I think Jake has done a great job in terms of investigating things. He's the one that first sort of brought this forward, but we haven't really had any updates recently, and so this was a venue to talk about these forward-facing issues that could impact us, and if there are things we can do now to help with the future, it would be good to do that.
Okay, you want to move forward then? Staff's got it on their radar. They will keep bringing reports back, keep us informed. Is that everybody okay with that? You want more than that? Are you okay with that? Okay. Then we'll move to number 5. What services would you consider adding, or how would you see it being funded? And consensus across the board is that we really don't have any new services, except for the one there about safety-related items. I think staff are addressing that, I hope. So,
Separate reports tonight talking about PPE and along those lines, but yeah, certainly. Yeah. Prioritize safety first.
okay, is there anyone else comments on that one? If not, then what suggestions or comments do you have for the budget process? I know it's a little different this year. We didn't ask for this. Unfortunately, this is what we're handed. I'm hoping that we make the best of it, and I still want council's input on what's going on. I do not want the responsibility of doing it all myself. Government's kind of made it that way, but I still want input tonight. So 7, what new projects would you like to see implemented or investigated to be included in the 2026 or future budgets? There are some suggestions there. Does anybody want to talk about what they put on here or add anything else? Or what, Andrew?
Thank you, Mayor Gitz. So my submission was for council honorarium to be held at current levels, and it looks like I did a pretty good guess on the CPI for this year. I know we haven't got a month in here yet, but in the past we've done this before, and it's not really symbolic. I think council got a big jump there a couple of years ago, I think in 2021, when the market review was done. And I know I'm not really here. I don't think any of us are here for the money. It's community service, so I'm fine if anybody else is interested in holding the council honorarium to the current level.
Any other comments from anyone else? Bob?
Never done my summer student. Just I realize people are hired to cut grass. But my point was that offering someone going to school the opportunity to learn, maybe they actually come back here, and so it works both ways. And I know there's lots of placements throughout the year, not just during the summer. And cemetery example, I'm sure if you want a student to do some work on rather than paying them to work on. That's just an example. We're getting more of those types of jobs. Can you farm some of that out to someone who could get the experience?
Maybe Jake could fill us in. We do have some summer students. What do they all do?
I can only speak to my own, which is the first time since I've been here that Public Works has brought in a summer student. But yeah, they're going to be doing a range of different tasks: hydrant painting, grass cutting, all kinds of different things, even some asset management stuff. So, you know, the clerk's department has brought on a co-op student, as well as the finance department. Maybe there's maybe one of Paul or Ashley can elaborate on their duties.
Good point, Bob. Like it does. Hopefully, I know at the county one time we had in planning, we had a student come in, and that person came back to the county when they got through school. So it is a good point that, yeah, they get to see what's going on in the municipality, and hopefully they like it and come back. So it's nice to see that we are doing it, and Bob's, just elaborate a bit more on it. But
I just wanted to quickly touch on the grant piece. We have been successful the last few years through the Canada Summer Grants Program. It's a federal program that they later trumpets quite regularly, so we have had some level of success with that. And we have the last 2 years, I would say, we've tried to engage more directly with some of the local schools whether it's universities or colleges around their co-op program, so it's a direct linkage. Brought some of the firesides through that with Fanshawe. So we are trying to embrace that, and embrace the idea that we're proposing kids that may fill our shoes at a later date.
You,
Oh, yeah, somebody brought up to me that, in the building department, there's some kind of a program that you can get where people send their drawings or whatever in a computer, program analog film. And I didn't know if that was something that would be cost efficient, or would be but more, condition, and being able to, move the paper to stuff. So I annoyed me with the program demonstrating and also just that it's, think about the money on 70, 20, and 30. The computer that's older than there's something that's the boundaries and some so many cameras that they go through. I'm continuing investigating for the program and
okay, Jerry?
Back to the summer grants and members here. We also at the library, when summer students come on board, we get grants for them.
Okay, is there anything anyone wants to pursue on number 7? With the discussion, Andrew?
0% increase for council on earnings.
Okay, who wishes to pursue that? Sorry, not going to move forward. Okay, number 8, some of the strong mayor powers are related to prescribed provincial priorities that are identified in OREG 580/22. Do you think that Perth East is properly addressing these provincial priorities? Anyone have further comments? Andrew?
Thank you, Margaret. So last I saw, there was like one line that said housing or something. So is there any more details than just one line in the zoning documents? Like, is there any on the list? Is there an ongoing discussion back and forth? Because I like to gauge this question properly, you got to know what's being asked, right? So I've been digging and asking, but I don't know. Maybe I'm missing it, but some daylight might help myself and a lot of people around the area figure out what's going on, but if that's available or not. Thank you.
Well, my understanding of the strong mayor powers is so that we build more homes. That was the initial suggestion. It's to cut the red tape. It's to make things happen. We don't seem to have that issue. I don't believe in Perth East. We are moving things along. We have people coming that want to build. So I believe we are on the right track. Anyone else want to comment? Bob?
I took this to be about housing as well. My opinion is that we always talk about affordable or attainable housing, and developers aren't going to be inclined to build that. So if a municipality wants to promote some land that they own for development and specifically ask for subsidized housing, rent income, then that's what we should be doing as municipalities to help people in the communities who are having trouble affording ownership of a home, right? So are we doing that? I don't believe we are to the extent that is needed. Personally, I'm of an age where I'm not too worried about myself, but I'm worried about my kids. And I'm sure anybody that has kids at a certain age must wonder how they're ever going to be able to afford a home. So when developers come to, whatever Shakespeare and they're building a $1 million home, is that affordable, attainable? I believe so, but they're going to build them because that makes the money. So are we involved in this? No. Are we going to be? Probably not, because that's the whole topic.
I think just before we go on, there is a difference between affordable and attainable. One is that it's geared to income, which you mentioned. The other one is if, to me, if the more housing we get in one area, so and we've been trying to do that instead of building the single homes, we've been asking for semis. We've never asked really for apartments, but maybe that's something we need to put in more. And I think if you start building more places to live on a smaller piece of land, then the price has to go down. And maybe we as a township, we're not pushing hard enough for that. But that's another comment to that. But maybe we need to, but we are trying. And you're right, the costs, the government really isn't telling us what affordable is. I did hear when we were in Sebringville that night for that EA, Caroline come out with that this area, an affordable apartment to rent would be about $1,200. That's the first time I've ever heard a figure of where it should be. Whether that's possible or not, I don't know. Happening. That's right. That's right. Yeah. Yeah. But the housing industry, if you watch the news in Toronto, is changing drastically. There's more houses for sale now than there ever was. The rent is coming down. And the last time when the pressures came, that's where it started there and it pushed out. And I'm hoping that that's going to push out at us too. And the housing can't, to me, it can't stay where it is, the cost of housing. But I always said that about farms too, and they're still going up. So anybody else want to, Amanda?
I wasn't going to weigh in, but I think there's just another element that's not part of the discussion that I think the province looks at as well. So obviously housing starts is a big focus, but there's also the approvals side of things. So there's a lot of municipal approvals that take place with regards to any kind of development, whether it's new homes, whether it's building a barn or a shed or addition or whatever. And I think, from my perspective, in terms of the work that we're doing, we do a great job on the approvals side of things. I think we run a really good building department that we can be really proud of. And there's, proof is in the pudding in terms of the, some of the numbers that have been coming out of the municipality last few years on that front. So we're seeing some prosperity, whether, like from, I look from a farm perspective, you're still seeing barns going up and sheds being built. So it's not just homes, it also encompasses building approvals. And so are we a municipality that is hindering approvals? I don't think we are. So I think we are in the right direction on that front.
Okay, is there anything anyone wishes to pursue in this item then? If not, we'll move to number 9. And it was anything else that you feel will have an impact on the preparation of the budget. And I think the consensus is no, we think it is a fairly good process. Jeremy?
As a group, but I think for the budget for next year, mayor powers stay, and there's a certain level of expectation and pressure on the mayor. We need to look at what the mayor's honorarium will be for the next election. If it becomes more of becoming closer to a full-time job, I think all the time, even in a small municipality like this, when the mayors are given this type of power to deal with on a regular basis. So I think that's something we need to keep in our head for probably prior to the next election. Before that moves forward, I think that's making that recommendation to the next council.
And just further to that, Mike and I have had a conversation, not necessarily just the mayor's honorarium, but all of council, how we can encourage people to come and do this. Like Andrew commented earlier about, we don't do it for the money, but we can't give our time freely. If someone has to give up part of their day of their full-time job to come, they need to be compensated for that. You can't expect someone to take less money to come and help run the municipality and not get paid for it. So if we want to entice people, there's different ways that we can do it. I think that is a discussion that we need to have prior to next year in our election and see where people are at or what they want to do. Do we need to add that? Do we get this consensus for that, or? It's up to me whether I want to add
Well-
consensus or whether I want to bring that back.
So, yeah, from a process standpoint, the items that will appear in the staff prepared budget will be based on directives, strong directives. So if you want us to give consideration in this budget to increase as it relates to honorariums and report supporting, where honorariums should be in strong directive. Now, based on what has happened throughout the night, I don't think there's any problems with trying to get consensus around that. I think that's what you tend to do with all of the items that would be considered as part of the budget, and we have a lot of other items still for consideration.
But I'm not really considering it for this budget. I'm considering it for the next term of council. I think that this term of council should determine what's going to happen with the next term, not what we're doing now. Like that's so everybody knows before they go into the election, what it is. We've also talked about changing the meetings to a day meeting or a night meeting or whatever. I think all those discussions need to happen before the election happens so that people know where they're at. But I don't really mean it to happen for this budget. We don't really need consensus because it's not going to affect this part. Right? Okay. And the last one, other comments you would like to provide leading into future budget consideration. Anything else anybody wants to bring up or talk about? Andrew?
Thank you, Marigus. So we talked about it with the landfill, the landfill getting, not at the end of life, but seeing that in the future and how to manage it. And then gravel pit, which is used for construction, speeding, all these other issues. We're probably going to get in eventually social housing issues, which I think I've seen on a couple of local websites about, we're not in favor of social housing. So nobody's mentioned growth, and growth is the root cause. If you were, the premier when he got elected in what it was 2016, and he was talking about Six Sigma. That's just like the Toyota production system. The root cause analysis, you're not going to fix anything unless you look at the root cause analysis. So the root cause is growth. Now, I'm not saying it's good or bad, but I'm just saying that it really needs to be always, for a landfill, how do we make growth pay for growth? Are we going to ask the province, or where's that money coming from? Where's the money coming from for new water and sewer infrastructure? The staffing to hold that. I know the rate, that's a user pay, but there's so many other things, sidewalks, all this other stuff. This all has to be with the lens, which is my least favorite word in the world, of growth, because that's what's driving all this and what's going to drive every budget, the quality of life, everything for the people in the area for generations. So unless you come to that conclusion, which I believe I have, and I think everybody knows, maybe they don't want to say it because there's other reasons, and that's fine, but growth is, it's there, and that's what's driving going to drive all the budgets, whether we like it or not. How we manage it and right size it for our rural municipality is the trick. Whoever's running that show, just maybe sometimes it's better to step back for a second and maybe not make a decision right at the beginning, in my opinion, and make it after understanding the total ramifications. So after a few 800-page reports, I know planning reports, it's hard to to surf through that, but so that's, I would say number 10 for me is the word growth.
So that's part of where the development charges come in. We started that here in Perth East, and development charges are to help pay for that growth. They may not pay for it all, but when someone wants to build, we are collecting that money and using it for our fire We're using it for our water and sewers. We're using it for some of the things that we have. If we don't have growth, then our current taxpayers are going to be paying the same amount. So for easier figuring, say you got paid $10,000 a year every year and you never had growth and the expenses are going up. So guess who's paying for that expense is the people that are here. So we have to have growth. In a business, you have to have growth to keep paying the wages or keep paying the expenses. And I look at the municipality the very same way. We have to have some kind of growth. It doesn't always have to be huge growth, but we need businesses to come. We need people to come that they help pay those increases that we have. That's how I look at it. I'm not sure how the rest of you look at it. Anybody else? I hear what you're saying, and I don't want us to get huge, but we still have to grow in increments somewhere in the municipality to survive. And it's just like people need an increase in their wage to pay for the expenses that they have, or they're not going to survive. And the same with the municipality. We need that increase in money, and we can't always keep going to that one taxpayer, so we spread it out a bit more and have a few more people come to help share the expense. Andrew?
I appreciate that, the comment, Marigots, and it makes sense and it's obvious, I might see it as something that should be more in businesses and communities to get rid of bedroom communities because they pay a higher tax rate, all that other good stuff, and maybe not so much housing. Find that balance there. I know probably ever since I've been here, I think once we were the best tax rate, maybe 2013 or something. I think we're second, which is good. I like that. But we haven't grown a lot. So I'm trying to find where the narratives, and I hear this, it's not just in here. I know it's a concept. It makes sense. But all you have to do is look at your neighbors. They have a lot of growth and they have really high taxes. So maybe that's something we get a report on.
Okay, anyone else? If not, I hope Ashley has a motion here for me. No motion? No recommendations? No? Okay. I didn't know if we filled this in. Okay, then we will move on to public budget survey results. And we have multiple pages of that. So now let's look at the survey results. I don't know if you want to go through it section by section. You want to make just general comments. Make no comments. You.
Still have instruction. The different completeness of government, but like the responsible for another level, and like some of the talk about the roads and things like that. They talk about the highways, the roads and things like that. And some people do take like more services and things like that. Whether they came from, they had all these services, but at the same time, they say that they like their taxes here, and that's a direct correlation to the services you get, like in countries who get basic services. We don't have the industrial tax base to do like St. Mary's did, have center that they have there, and not center almost bankrupt St. Mary's because the operating costs downstream costs are extremely expensive. Hopefully people will understand that there's a certain amount you can make and without the industrial taxation, we just can't afford stuff that they're doing in other cities. A lot of the other regional cities are pretty heavy in debt for what they have. For at least there will be some standard of living, there will be some other services. But I understand that people in the bottom end don't need to sort of other things, so that's always going to be a problem.
Okay, thank you. Backing up, my apologies to Mike. I didn't give him an opportunity to speak on this.
Not a problem. It's really this compilation back that we got through the public survey. The numbers are down a little bit this year, but mostly I think because of the timing. We needed to correlate the timing of the survey with the timing of this meeting and the changes. It's a really strong mayor issue. So I think a lot of the comments are similar to what we've seen over the past couple of years. And I should definitely provide a level of service that is probably not at the high level, but certainly not at the low level across communities like communities in the province. And I think we pride ourselves from a staff perspective, efficient and running a very late shift so that our tax rate is still not.
Okay, anyone else? Amanda?
Just a very specific comment, 'cause it's an Ellis word. There's a comment about Sebringville about wanting a better playground. And we, if folks recall, we did put money towards the new playground. And I was told that the new playground was to be installed in May. We're in July. And I've seen some ground move around when I drive by. But anyways, hopefully we can show that there is a new playground soon, but did they ever get back to us about the paperwork that we requested? Just out of curiosity, just sort of.
Through the mayor, yes, they have provided the documentation on that funding that was provided in 2019. That was actually, I just received it in the end of May, I believe. And I did spend all of that funding based on the criteria. However, the playground was part of it initially, but they did come back and modify the scope of the funding. I say it was in 23, 22, the end of 22, beginning of 23, and it expanded it to drainage and we did some work on the property as well. But the funding has.
And I think there is supposed to be a new playground. But anyways, I requested for council to be invited because we've contributed money towards it. But anyways, it's just a little specific thing for me that I wanted to flag.
Okay, anyone else have any other comments on the budget survey? Nope. Okay, then we'll move to finance discussion items. Paul?
Thank you, Mayor Agates. Just to review a few of the items here provided for council's information. The first is the consumer price index chart and where we're seeing the amount playing out for 2026. And we're just awaiting the June, which should be released in the next couple of weeks. But right now, without June, we're averaging at 2%. So we're kind of estimating at 2.5 for 2026. And we'll see where we play at. The next chart there included is the historical chart for the CPI, so council can see where CPI has landed from 2007 until now. And the next bit of information is the analysis on the levy increase and what a 1% levy increase means for the township of Perthes. So 1% levy increase is $112,000. So if we need to raise $225,000, we need to raise taxes 2%. Or, yes, or find additional revenue. The next chart is the distribution of the levy. So that explains where the levy is going. So 44% goes to transportation services, followed by general government with 18%, and then 12% for both fire and policing. The recreation is 7%, library, and then the group of environment, cemetery, and planning, they're both 3%, and conservation authority and bylaws are 2%. So that's just the breakdown of the taxation levy where it goes to. The next enclosure there is the 2025 reserve continuity schedule. So this is for information of where we anticipate based on the budget, the reserves being at the end of 2025. And we're anticipating that there'll be about a 1.5 million decrease in reserves. The final bit of information from finance is the unfunded capital continuity schedule. And this just shows where our unfunded capital projects are sitting as far as being fully funded. Streetlights, the retrofit project should be fully funded approximately 2027. The Mill Street water and wastewater project will be fully funded in 2029. And then the fire department unfunded capital, that is estimated at the current rates, the average of approximately 30,000 a year, paying that down. It'll be 2030 plus. And that concludes finances. If there's any questions, I'll happy to answer.
Okay, thanks, Paul. Any questions of any of that information? Gary?
Yes, thanks. Reserves anticipated with 2025 using 1.2. Decreasing 1.5?
Yeah.
Within here, what was it, what did we use in 2024?
In 24, you added, we added about 1.1 million
Yeah.
in 24.
Okay, anything else? No, okay, then we will head to the 2026 recreation facility funding applications, and I know there's several, so Becky's going to give the report. Maybe Becky, you should run through all four, what they're asking for, and then we'll go back and see what council wishes, or what the consensus is.
Certainly, thanks. Thanks, Mayor Rhonda. So just to give you a little background, this the applications were sent out to all groups in the community for their consideration for application. We received 4, one of which has been rescinded, which is the Optimist Club kitchen renovation. They found funding elsewhere. So we'll just starting at the beginning then. Kincora Soccer Association, there's a fence replacement that goes along line 42, which is a safety issue. It helps to keep the kids from running out onto the road if they're chasing balls and that sort of thing. Total project is $2,875, and they're asking between $2,000 and $2,500. The next would be then the Optimist of Ellis. They're asking for funding for a generator, for a backup generator for the hall, so that it can be used during power outages, and also to be used by the community as a warming center and cooling center, and by first responders as a command center in an event of emergency. The project cost is $20,001. They're requesting $1,601. And the Stephenville Athletic Association, they're requesting funds for a sport court and bleachers. The bleachers are 5-row, 12-foot aluminum bleachers to replace the existing one at the Ball Diamond. And then they want to construct a new court for pickleball, basketball, those types of things. The quote that they had got was just kind of a budget figure, so it wasn't an exact quote. I believe what they had done is contacted a construction company, and they said, yeah, that'll be like $40 square foot type thing. That's kind of how they came up with the figure. And there are at the total project, they are estimating at $106,250, and they're asking for $100,000. And just to note that none of these as council will be aware, that none of these are on township property. They're all owned by other associations or by these associations.
Okay, thank you. Just before we start going down these, do we have a policy, or can we decide that they don't get the money until they hand the receipts in to show that they've actually done the work? Is that how we're moving forward all the time from now on?
Yes, the policy has been changed that they don't receive the money until they've met the funding agreement requirements. And that is part of it, that they have to provide the receipts, invoices that they've paid for it and incurred it. As well as if it's playgrounds, we've asked for the inspections, and it depends on what the project is, what we ask for beforehand.
Okay. All right, so then we have 3 proposals in front of us. We're going to do one at a time. We make comments, see where the consensus is, what we should give or not give, and go from there. So the Kincora, you,
Usually on these kind of apps, these are not kind of like a percentage that we look at. Like if they, like just say for Concords, 20, almost 2,900 bucks. We usually not only give single for that, like there's
not that I'm aware of. I think council just decides how much they're going to give towards it. Sometimes we give it all, sometimes we give half, sometimes we give, there's no percentage that I know of that says what we should be giving. I think we look at the projects. Sometimes we ask for financial statements, how they're going to raise the money, where it's all coming from, and I think council just decides what to do. So Paul or Becky, both of you, who wants to go first?
So I'm thinking maybe what the deputy mayor is thinking of is the Lyle Yost project that just went in 22, 23. And that was a third. So a third from the organization, a third from the township, and they did a third fundraising. So there was a set parameters there on that one. But again, that was property that's owned by the township.
Becky, you want to add?
My comment was very similar, as it could have been even when we've got funding from the government, where it's 30, 30, 33, 33, 33 from federal, provincial, and municipal. So that could be where you're thinking of the percentages.
And sometimes the organizations will come forward and say, we need X number of dollars. We'd like the township to give this. We're going to give the other from fundraising or grants or wherever. So, okay. Jerry?
Normally, we would get this at our first budget. Right, over the past years, we get these requests, not at our visioning. I mean,
Yes.
Process has changed.
Yeah.
And they would actually come and do a presentation. Well, whatever.
Correct. Mike?
Just if I might add, there has been other circumstances where the group comes after the budget process and is passionate about the project, and we're trying to scope it so this all happens as part of the budget. For one-offs that come into council, it's a very difficult situation. The budget's already passed. Somebody comes in after the fact, they're looking for, maybe it's a bona fide project or not. So then we're dealing with a particular ask and we're pulling out of a reserve probably, and it's not part of the overall budget conversation. So we are trying to scope it so that all of these factors get brought in, because all of them are valuable projects clearly to each of these groups, but there is only one budget per council to consider. So that's why myself, I think it's appropriate, and yeah, the way the policy reads is that they should all come forward at the same time for council.
Okay, so the person that we have for consideration is the Kincora Athletic Association. For their soccer association, they're asking for a grant between $2,000 and $2,500 for a project that's $2,875. The suggestion is the money could come from our community investment reserve, which is at $116,000. There's also another, and I'm not sure it's when we're going to have this discussion. Paul and Mike and I talked about it briefly as well. We have this Quinlan Fund that we've had forever. The will didn't really state exactly what it had to be used for, and maybe some of the, I remember it's been brought to council before, maybe Jerry remembers it, or someone, or Andrew or somebody else, Bob. So we tossing around, like, maybe it's time we give them that principal instead of we've been investing it. It costs an awful lot for staff to keep track of it, send them the money and do all that. Maybe we just divide it 3 ways, give it to Stephenville, Rostock, and Kincora, give it to them, and then we're done with it. So I don't know if that discussion can happen tonight or that happens separately, Jeremy.
So the money from the sale of Mill Hydro, it was invested in Mill Street East, right? And then we've been depleting those assets for the interest on different things that have gone back into the community in Milverton, which will be depleted next year or this year, I believe, depending on how far they can stretch the budget. Like, we've been doing that with other funds. So not something I thought we'd be discussing tonight, but I think that's probably a prudent idea to get everybody back on the same.
This was just slightly different because it was left in the will. This money, that's where it came from. And like I said, the will is very vague. Council of the day split it in 2. Part of it helps pay for the Quinlan Park, I believe, and the other part was divided. The interest off of the other part was given to the associations for capital expenses. Over time, we tweaked it to help pay for maybe not always capital to help them out. And like I said, it's just costing us a lot of money to keep looking after this. Maybe Paula wants, do you want to elaborate a little bit more on it?
I can try to elaborate a little bit more. There's 120,000 in principal for the Quinlan Fund. Half of it is designated towards the recreate athletic associations within Ellis, and we disperse the interest that's earned on that 60,000 amongst the 3 of them annually. Great when the interest rates were higher. Interest rates aren't so great. We're allocating maybe anywhere from, it's gone up a bit the last year, so it's about $1,000 to each of them now annually. It is a lot of tracking, it's a lot of maintenance and making sure investments are reinvested optimally to get the best interest for them. And that other 60,000 would remain for Quinlan Park.
Just to add, I think to the conversation, there was legal consideration over the years that council has gotten. It's clear there's discretion. It's also clear that the fund, that 60,000 was to be geared towards athletic endeavors in Ellis Township. And we're not, staff are certainly not suggesting that it's not the case. But, as opposed to these groups, seeing athletic or athletic, Rostock Athletic continually comes to council asking for dollars on an annual basis, give them their 20,000 that remains and let them make their own decisions on how to invest. That's the option that we're putting on the table. But again, yeah, the funds were given in that direction, but the control over the funds was always with council.
Is the family still around that they would have an opinion on what would happen with the money? Like, was there someone from the family that left it? Like that, this could be a bit of a hot potato for Amanda, if the funds are dispersed and they chip it.
There is one family that I remember that I know of. They live on Vivian Street, and they contacted me about another thing when we were doing the official plan. It wasn't about this at all. So I do know they are connected to the Quinlans because she told me that when she wrote me a letter. So I'm not sure how closely they're connected to the person that gave us the money. or if there's a family connection at all, like, you know, like some people have the same last name, it doesn't mean they're connected. But if that's something you wish to pursue, or, you know, it's been given to the council, and like I said, it was council of the day, so to me, I think council of the day can make it. Let Jerry go first and then Amanda.
Thanks. So we're assured that these are the three associations that exist in Alice.
All three. There's no other athletic associations that have ever come forward to tap into the Quinlan Fund, no.
Well, my thought would be yes, divided by three, give them these.
Amanda?
This is all Ellis. So in terms of, I'm not opposed to the suggestion at all. I just think if we were to move forward with this, I think it needs to be done properly and communicated properly with these groups. Reason I say that is, in particular, not to single one out, but in particular, Sebringville really has this impression that they are to be getting money on an annual basis from the township. I know that Perth South gives them not very much, but they give them a little bit of money every year. And I think if we were to do this, there should probably be some sort of presentation. If we were able to track down the family, the Quinlan family, there should be some sort of presentation. It needs to be communicated properly that, like, this is it. You know what I mean? Like, I think that, like, because otherwise we give people the impression that they can keep coming back to the township, right? So I just think if we do decide to do it, the communications and the execution of it needs to be done properly and tactfully. And also the other key thing too is, like, we do a lot of good things in the community and people don't know it. And it, you know, I think we did a great thing when we highlighted some of the, like, the naming ceremony stuff. We actually did a little something, went on social, like, it was very nice. I know we don't have a community paper or anything like that, but I think we need to actually execute on this properly. It needs to be communicated to these groups as well. So, and it also highlights the Quinlan fund, right? Like, I think it's a special thing. So that would be my only request, is if we were to proceed, again, always up for finding efficiencies and not burdening staff. So totally in favor of that. Just, I think it needs to be done with care.
Jerry?
Yeah, I agree with that, Amanda. But they're still receiving money each year, the interest from the other 60.
No,
No,
no, the other 60 will be only to fund Quinlan Park.
Oh, right, okay, thanks.
there
for
was the
clarification.
two kind of pots. Yeah.
Okay, so Andrew?
Thank you, Mayor. Good, sorry. Do we give funding to non-township entities who have school, sports programs for, like, you have 40 kids play, you get a couple bucks each for, do you still give that to Sebringville and Corin get, like, funding per kid in programs? Okay, so there is a little bit of money going there. Okay. I don't know.
What is the number? Wasn't it, was 25 or 30?
It's total of $10,000. 10? I think it's 10. And then it's just split by the number of total registrants of Shakespeare, Stephenville, Kincora, Milverton.
Millbank.
No, there's no
New-
there's no minor sports in Millbank, or sorry, soccer, but there's nothing in Millbank. In Rostock, if there's.
Okay, so what are your wishes? Do you wish to disperse this $60,000 between those three organizations? And if you're going to do that, then do you still want to give money to Kincora for their soccer field, or do you want that to be in given the 60 or the 20,000 and I know I kind of got off topic here, bringing that up, but it is on here, and that's why I said it. We've had this discussion, so Bob,
I think it's prudent to disperse the 60,000, but I think Amanda brings up a good point about communication. I think if you handed $20,000 each, that'd be great, but some are gonna be really happy because they want more, and some are gonna have more than that. So I think there is a communication process. I don't think it has to happen very soon. So this could go on behind the scenes for a period of time. Some of the projects that will be getting some money, they can make their plans early. I agree that there has to be some type of communication to say, this is where the money came from. This council has decided to end the arrangement that some help need to be in place. And the reason why, because 1 or 2% interest on $60,000 doesn't do any good. So we're going to make these bigger funds and we'll come back to you.
Just a final sort of closing on it for what it's worth. So like King Core is not asking for a lot, but I did last year. I don't know, it'd be coming up at some point. They always host like a soccer tournament and appreciation thing. So I was invited to it, and it's like a big thing. Like soccer is a huge thing in King Cora. I had no idea how big it is. A lot of families, very active. People are very appreciative. Versus I go to Sebringville and there's like an expectation that we're going to give them money. The mayor was invited to their AGM. She wasn't able to go, and I was asked to go in her place. And I was put on the spot in a very uncomfortable way that I did not appreciate. And so I tried to sort of speak to them like off to the side afterwards, but I just don't think that this group should be getting their full ask at all. So I'm not in favor of that because I just don't think there is the same level of appreciation and there's this expectation. So I do think that makes a difference with regards to the Optimist Club of Ellis. I think that is unique in that like we can use that, in terms of they were talking about the community warming and cooling centers. Like I think that serves a really good public good for the community, especially with these extreme weather events that we have. So really supportive of that. So I just, for my 2 cents, for what it's worth, just wanted to share those remaining comments. I don't know what's best, except it would be lovely if we were to give money to King Cora, that there could be some sort of level of presentation at that big soccer event, which I do not know when it is. I don't know if you happen, do you know when it is? It's sometime this summer. It's later in the summer, but because there's a lot of families and a lot of people at that event. So just more of a suggestion in terms of an opportunity and in terms of like people who are truly like grateful for any support.
okay, so let's go at it like this. First of all, the 60,000, is everybody in consensus that we have staff look into that some more and disperse that 20,000 to each of the groups? Okay, we'll keep that separate.
I would like to.
Okay, well, staff will bring back some more information on that. Okay, then let's move to what they're asking. So first we're going to do with King Cora. King Cora is asking for between 2,000 and 2,500. What do you wish to give people? Jerry?
I think they can take it out of the 20 that we're gonna get.
Okay, anyone else?
They should be able to take that out of the 20,000.
As long as we do that. Like Jeremy wants more information coming back from that. And I don't know if council will say yes or no. That's the only thing. Because that's kind of a separate thing, but that's your wish. That's fine. Andrew?
I'm fine with the 1/3 formula that was presented earlier. I know just from my experience in the Shakespeare area, bleachers are 1/3. Another number of other things are 1/3. I think the walking path and all that was a little bit less than 1/3. And there's fundraising and provincial grants hopefully, and well, there isn't an election coming up anytime soon in the feds or province, so maybe hard to get money out of anybody, but it's, I think that that's kind of been stuck in place. It's already been done a few times and it seems to make sense to do the 1/3, 1/3. You know, there's a community investment reserve fund that can take money out and that'll make everybody happy. They'll all get a little bit, but I would say 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 for recreation projects. I think we do
Talking
that.
about, I'm only talking about Kinkora.
Okay, yeah, so I would say 1/3. Oh, Kinkora, that's only a fence for. Are they gonna get the money? Yeah, 1/3. I might as well set a precedent, right?
So 1/3 is approximately $800. Not quite. If you're looking at 2,500, you're looking at 2,000, it's not quite that much. It's 70. Anyone else? You want to tell me something? No?
I was just gonna say maybe Paul or Becky wants to speak to it, but the 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 was when there was another grant, like a provincial or Fed grant. So in this case, unless you guys are aware of something, I'm not sure that there is. So the 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 may not work.
Jeremy?
Any kind of funding for things like this. And the same principle might apply in Kinkora as well, because it's, you know, one road away from West Perth. Like, really what we're looking at is serving the youth of our communities and how much of our youth is being served there versus the neighboring municipality. And it just so happens that geographically it's located where it is. Like Shakespeare, I'm pretty comfortable saying 90% of those children are from our municipality, but is the same principle apply for Sebringville and for Kinkora? I'm not sure. And I don't know if that's a discussion we need to have in the future about, you know, your registration, where are these people actually from? But if we're funding $100,000 to go to Shakespeare for that park because it's across the road and half of those children are coming from Perth South, I think that they need to also go to Perth South and ask for some funding there.
So right now, my focus,
Did I say Shakespeare? Sorry, I meant Sebringville. Sorry.
my focus is on Kinkora. Kinkora is asking for $2,000 to $2,500. What do we want to give?
Same principle applies there.
But Jeremy, and I'm not sure if you're aware of this, hockey has changed. Now it's not the closest arena that you're going to. You can go anywhere. So we're gonna, as time goes on in the future, we're gonna find out that there's gonna be kids come from all over to play in Milverton, but they're not all from Milverton. And they don't have to be in a closest to the post office anymore. Those kids can play anywhere. So do we look at other sports the same way? They're offering a service that we don't have to do. That's how I look at it. Kinkora's offering a service that our rec department doesn't have to run. Ellis has always been the oddball, that's what we want to call us, because they own their own parks, they look after their own parks, but they provide the same service. And I have fought this the whole time I've been on council, 24 years now, that we funded one area and not the other. Just because they looked after it for us, I think we still need to fund them, even though those kids don't all come from.
Funding their share.
Well, they do have, right, but they have a ballpark in St. Paul's, which they fund, help fund. They have a pool that they fund in Kirkton with Huron County. So they are funding. And because it's on our side of the road, they just give Sebringville money. That's how they do it. So, but well, I'm not down there yet. I'm at King Cora. Hurts. Sorry, my body thinks I'm in the middle of the night in Germany. So anyway, King Cora, they want 2,000 to 2,500. What figure do you want to give them? And let's see what the consensus is. Bob?
Well, I like that they provided some pictures and that fence clearly needs to be replaced. I'd give them $2,000. If you want to go to 2,500, that's fine too, but it's a legitimate project that serves community well. I don't know who you want to classify, but let's give them pretty much what they're asking for. Want to cut in the middle, 22.5?
Okay, so 2,250. Who's in favor of that? Done. Perfect. Holy. Let's move on to the Optimist Club of Ellis. They're asking for a generator and they have applied for numerous grants, have got turned down every time. They have a good point. It can be a facility for warming, cooling, just like we offer our other facilities. What's your thought on helping them out? Hugh?
Not against helping them out, just the legalities of that, if like we need a memorandum of understanding with them, so that if there's anything comes up, that we can use the facility and there's things in place to say who's paying for what and all that kind of thing. Like, is there a lot more to it than they say that they'll do this? But again, we need something like a memorandum of understanding and that kind of stuff, so that everybody's got their needs covered.
Good point. Someone on staff help me with that?
That's when these requested and that I'm not part of the conversation. Yeah, I think the overall idea of a warming cooling facility, I think I can probably wrap my head around quite easily if it's being used as a spot for overnight stays during an emergency, things like that, or medical care or anything along those nature. We're probably going to be able to. So it's not our building. If they're opening it up as a municipal facility in those type of emergencies, again, very generous idea, but when we are doing that, we're doing it under the guise of the Emergency Acts, and we have responsibilities. We have an entire plan that we train on annually, that we have experienced people implementing. It's not sometimes, but I'm not saying it's not a good thing. So I think we probably simplify what we're practicing.
Okay, other comments? So what do you wish to do?
I think we need to get more information. I think there's I like the concept, but I think he brings up a good point. Because they could also easily use the generator for firing up something like out back or whatever. Like, they could be using it for other things too. What's stopping them from doing that? But
Okay, so you want to defer that one and see if staff can bring back more information, and then we'll deal with it more when we get into the budget process. Okay, get some more information. Now we'll move to the Seaverville one. What do you wish to do with their request? They're requesting 100,000 from us to help pay for some bleachers. Jerry?
I'll add in, let's 25,000.
Okay, anyone else?
more generous than I was going to say. I was going to say 6,000. But
Well, let's go down to 10.
Jeremy?
Yeah, so the $100,000 is what they estimate that the pickleball court will cost. The 6 Is a bleacher, yeah.
Okay, Jerry suggesting 10. Anyone else making a suggestion?
I'm supportive of 10.
How many? Andrew, you want to comment?
I'd like to see it closer to the 1/3 number. I know we're not doing that, but it just seems to be expectation that I have.
You're talking 30,000.
30.
At least 30. Anyone else? Jerry?
I know we have nothing here from Milverton Hall. We're gonna get more requests there. Kirkside and Aaronfield. Keep in mind that community investment reserve fund, what we contribute to that each year. So this would deplete that down to takes it down to 65 or so, 60. What do we contribute each year to that? Okay, now thank you. And with Councilman Matson's comment, but we should be getting some help on. So, still like to speak to the thing.
Just to speak on that, like, I forget what is it, if they get 2,700 or whatever from First South every year. It's a nominal amount. Maybe it's less than that. They didn't ask this of First South. They asked it and they assumed that they were getting it the way it was communicated to me. So that's the only reason I'm not advocating. This isn't my ward. I should be a bigger advocate for it. That's the only reason I'm not. They also have money in the bank themselves. I think they have like over 100,000 in the bank on their own. So I think this is a pretty big ask and a big assumption that we're just going to foot the bill. So I have no problem us putting money towards it and helping them out, but they need to show more than what they have. I think there was a complete rigmarole with the money that we gave, the 70,000 or whatever it was last time. That was before the updated policy. And it's still gone on how many years later? 4 or 5 years later. So that I'm not super thrilled with. They are a really good group. They mean well. They do some really great things in the community. It is very active there. But I think they need to be a little bit more appreciative and not making these assumptions, and it needs to be sort of treated the same because Searyville, again, a funny community, unlike Ellis or the Kincora, where there's a lot of farming kids that go to soccer, and I think there is a vast majority that are Ellis residents. Searyville, I really genuinely don't know where the kids are coming from. I don't know if it matters, but anyways, that's just my comments. I think we should give them some money, but I think it shouldn't be near as much as what they're asking.
Anyone else? Andrew?
Thank you, Marion. Sorry, we brought up about other larger established communities and this fund. Do we not have development charges that can cover some of that? Are development charges open up to recreation projects? I believe I've seen that lately. We can use development charges for
Within
recreation.
our current DC study, there are a list of projects that are approved for the DCs. That being said, the DC bylaw will be revamped it's due in 2026. We have it on the budget for 2025, so we'll be starting work in 2025 to come up with a new list of projects and to remove the ones that have been completed and whatnot, and reanalyze to make sure those are the projects we want going forward or whatnot.
Sorry, I apologize. Maybe my question
Yep.
wasn't clear. Qualifying for it, do recreation projects qualify for development charges funding? Yes, okay.
They have to be owned by the township.
Yep. No, that's fine. I'm just specifically talking about the concern Councilor Smith brought up. There'd be no money, right?
Just, uh, Jerry mentioned it in the tweet something. Do we have a deadline when they could, like, we got these ones now already, right? Are we gonna take more applications before we get to the budget? Or is that deadline passed? Is that in a policy somewhere? Like we talked about Milverton Minor Ball. So is something gonna crop up here when we get into the budget process or the first budget meeting that we're gonna have somebody showing up that night thinking that they want to get more money?
With the process change, I would think we would try and stick to the deadline that we've established to include them in the budget. However, this being a switch in the year, maybe we're more lenient in it this year because it is a transition year. And we don't really have a set budget amount for these projects within the budget. Where I was before, we had a set budget line of say $20,000 a year. We would have the deadline. They would apply the money based on the applications that were received. If there were any money left for the ones that came afterwards, then yeah, they would consider them. But if the money was gone, money was gone. So we're a little different here. We don't have a set budget for these projects, for these asks. And it is a transition year, so.
Okay, so going back to Stephenville, it was suggested $10,000. How many are in favor of giving Stephenville $10,000 towards their project? Nope, okay, throw another number out. Tell me what other number you think. Andrew?
We'll try 30 again.
Okay, how many are in favor of giving them $30,000? Okay, something else, Bob?
I think without a presentation that we normally receive and the limited amount of information they provided and the ask is way more than, I think it's just too much to basically. Right? If they want to provide more information, great. If they want to say what First South is giving for this project, great. If they don't want to share any more, then I'm not really comfortable providing public knowledge to a private entity that is sensitive of a thing. Maybe there's more behind the scenes that I'm not aware of, but for this here on my computer.
Okay, so how many want to have it deferred, that, them come back with more information? And, you know, Bob hit it on the head, we've done that many times, we've asked what money they're raising, what grants they're getting, where the money's all coming from, you know, what are they putting into it? So if that's the consensus, we will defer that. Is that, everybody good with that? Okay. Excuse me, good. All right, I think that's it, and that's one. We've been at this almost 2 hours. You want a 10-minute break? You want to keep going? Great, okay, we'll take a 10-minute. Okay, moving to our next item on our agenda, we're at 6.5, service level increase requests. And the first one we have is from the Employee Betterment Committee on work food and personal protective equipment. And tonight we have Stacy and Loretta with us. So ladies, welcome. And if you'd like to sit at the desk there, I'll let you get through your report.
Oh, I'm sorry. Newbie here. Good evening, Mayor Egatz. The Perth East Employee Betterment Committee is requesting your consideration of increasing the current work food and personal protective equipment allowance. Under the Occupational Health and Safety Act, employers are to provide and ensure the use of appropriate PPE to protect staff from workplace hazards. The current HR Policy 5-3 dress code was created 14 years ago, with the latest revision being 11 years ago. The average cost of work boots is currently between $200 to $300, so the annual work boot allowance of $150 is outdated and below our neighboring municipalities' ranges. We have collaborated with department managers and are recommending the following annual allowance to be considered for the 26th year. For the Public Works Department, $400 to $500 annually for work boots and the high visibility PPE combined. Parks, Recreation, and Community Services, $250 to $300 annually for the work boots and high visibility PPE combined. For building and planning, the high visibility PPE is at the manager's approval and $300 work boot allowance every second year. For fire, high visibility PPE is at the manager's approval. And for other departments, the high visibility PPE will be at manager's approval. And if boots are needed for occasional use, a suggestion of $200 every 5 years. Thank you, Mayor Egatz, for your time. And is there any questions or comments?
Okay, thank you. Questions or comments from anyone? Nope. Okay, what does everyone think of their suggestions? You? Good. Anyone else? Everyone's good with their suggestions? You nodding, heads nodding, okay? All right, thanks, ladies.
Thank you so much.
Okay, the next on the agenda is the Fire Department Volunteer Group Registration and Retirement Savings Plan. And Bill is with us on the screen tonight. Welcome, Bill. Are you there?
Hello, Mayor Egatz and Council.
Yep, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, super. My first report addresses the potential establishment of a group registered retirement savings plan for our volunteer firefighters. This proposal was brought forward by Milverton Station Chief Reese following consultation with members from all 3 fire stations. As outlined in the report, a group RRSP offers a fiscally responsible way to support our firefighters in planning for retirement. Though modest in financial scale, this initiative represents a meaningful step in recognizing the dedication and longstanding service of our personnel. It also aligns with our broader objectives to strengthen retention, promote volunteerism, and support the overall well-being of our firefighters. I'll gladly try and answer any questions.
Okay, thanks, Bill. Any questions of the report? Comments, Andrew?
No, I appreciate it and I understand it. And I think Chief Hunter articulated that it's, if you look at how much a volunteer firefighter in Perth East makes and the contribution, it's, I'm not sure how many full-time firefighters we have in the other departments are going to end up with 80% of their full-time wages when they exit their full-time jobs. I'm just wondering if I agree with everything that's said in the report, and we definitely rely on our firefighters, and they, when I'm having a barbecue, they're going out and doing their work. But I'm just wondering if maybe we could do something that's maybe a little more significant than this actually by maybe improving some safety equipment or something like that and put the money into providing them with a safer working environment and better service level for their unfortunate customers. So that's my only question is that as Chief Hunter said, it's going to be a tiny amount of money, even after like an 18-year service. It's going to be a pretty tiny amount of money. I'm just wondering if the money could be. I'm surprised fund manager even wanted to take this one on. But anyway, so that's just my comment. I wonder if we could augment something else that may deal better with their daily operations than this.
I think the gist of the ask is to encourage people to join the fire department. So they think this is a great incentive to get the guys come and join it. I hear what you're saying with equipment. I don't think that's the ask here, really. Kevin has talked to me a couple times about this, and it's more or less to try to get more people to come and give them an incentive. So each firefighter puts in $25 a month. So in a year, that's what, 300, and we put in 300, that's 600. That's 600 a year for each of them. They're there 10 years. Now we're talking $6,000 plus interest. It's not a lot of money, but I think it's more that it's not the lack of equipment. It's try to find an incentive to get more people to join as well. Am I correct on that, Bill?
Yeah, yes, Mayor Eggetts, I think you're right on the target. I haven't had too many concerns on the equipment. I think council over the years has been very supportive of the fire department with our trucks and equipment and fire stations. This is something that I think is more to act as maybe a thank you over and above the wages that we do pay them. But the $25 obviously was what the group originally proposed. They certainly probably wouldn't say no if council wanted to increase that amount, but I would certainly leave that up to you.
Okay, any other comments, questions? Bob?
Yeah, it sounds like a good idea for a number of reasons. Financial part is probably the lowest one on the list. It's the morale and retention or recruitment, whatever. So I think it's a good idea.
Okay. So is everyone in consensus to go along with this, the 20,700, you think?
I just wanted, I think it's great to council supportive of the concepts. I think it's probably good to take it back and look at what the administration, as it relates to a separate RSP. It's the expectation that the township's investing those dollars. Are we working with another provider? I think there's just a few administrative things that we need to confirm. And again, I'm not trying to rain on the parade, like I end up having to do other things, because I think if council is looking for ways to provide a thank you to firefighters, sort that out. But I do think there are more factors that need to be considered as it relates to kind of just the administering of it. That's all. Not as well.
Okay, so you're in favor of the concept, and staff will look into some more of the details to make sure it can be done. What the implications are if any or not. That's okay. All right. Thanks, Bill. Then we'll move to Parks.
Perfect. Thanks very much.
Then we'll move to Parks, Recreation, Community Services. Purchase of a set of soccer nets for the Beauchart Field at Greenwood Park. Becky?
Yeah, so we've created the soccer pitch now, and we would need soccer nets to complete it. we've received $1,500 from Stratford Perth Community Foundation and $500 from the Optimist of Mornington, and So that is a request then of $3,300 from capital reserves.
Okay, questions, comments? Supportive? Yes? Yes, okay. All right, thanks, Becky. Then we'll move to CAO HR Health and Safety Training. Jennifer?
Thank you, Mayor Eggets. We would like to have a consideration made for some funds to be available for health, safety, and wellness initiatives for staff throughout the year and moving forward. So it would be an ongoing request. So just a chance to provide some training and wellness activities for staff. For example, ergonomic training could be helpful for staff and how they set up their workstation and being able to be safer at work.
Okay, questions? Support? Ed, you're nodding yes, okay. Thanks, Jennifer. And the next one is CAO/HR Corporate Leadership Training. Jennifer?
Yes, this is a goal for the next year to create some corporate leadership training for the management team. And so had to be able to have money available in the budget ongoingly for that development, for leadership and professional development for management, and to work with staff and engage and create a great workplace culture for Perth East.
Okay, any questions? Jerry?
Yeah, no, I'm in favor of it, just as in regards to the projection for over the next 5 years. The prior one, projection, the contract for 4,500, and then it's only swept up $250 to 2030. Just curious as why the anticipation in 2030 that the higher contract would be 10,000. Seems like a significant jump. Wondering that.
Through the mayor to Councillor Smith. Basically, it's just to account for COLA increases and cost increases for hiring various contractors to come in and do this training. So just to try and anticipate that moving forward.
Okay. Andrew?
Thank you, Mayor. Sorry, it gives me a question of, is there already an existing, like, where AMPCO, is that it, where everybody gets trained from, all the where you get your certifications from? That's kind of ongoing training, especially for newer people who may not be fully. Where does that money come from?
So yeah, a number, a few of our staff are members of the AMCTO, which is Association of Treasurers of Ontario. Treasurers, member of the MFOA, finance officers. Depends on the specialty of the departments. There are different associations, and yet we have dollars in the operating funds as it relates to those memberships already. Yes, this would be more focused on specific training as it relates to kind of the management team.
Okay, so it's outside of like
Yeah,
technical training. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, everyone good with that? Okay, thanks, Jennifer. Then we're going to move to one-time requests. The first three are bills, so we'll just bill. The first one's the replacement tires for the Steubenville tanker.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Agates and Council. These next two reports this evening relate to the tire replacements on two of our tankers. Before I get started, I want to apologize. There is a typo on both spreadsheets. I ticked the external funding when it should be the one below, which is health and safety. So sorry about that. Since 2012, when we experienced a blowout of a tire on a Milverton tanker, the tires were 17 years old. Since that time, we have followed the NFPA 1911 standard, which recommends tire replacement every 7 years. the standard certainly aligns with our obligations under the Occupational Health and Safety Act. And in 2026, tanker 47 in Milverton and 57 in Seymourville will be the 2 trucks due for their scheduled tire replacements. And I'll gladly answer any questions.
Okay, thanks, Bill. So let's deal with the first. Did you do the first 2 or just the first one? First 2. Okay, first 2.
2.
Everybody happy with or good with that? The tires, replacing tires? That's something that we have to do. Okay. All right. Then the third one, you have the master plan.
Yes, thanks. My final report tonight concerns the hiring of a consultant to develop a fire master plan for the Perth East Fire Department. I also intend to present a similar proposal to West Perth with the hope that we can share the cost and undertake a joint plan. Neither department has previously completed a master fire plan. Initiating one in 2026 would provide a strategic roadmap for the next decade. The fire service, as everybody knows, is entering a particularly dynamic period. Our mandatory certification takes effect next year. We're dealing with rising costs of apparatus and equipment. Public education is always at the forefront, and our enforcement. There's always a need for a more comprehensive and modernized approach. A joint fire master plan would enhance the long-term strategic capacity of both departments, and in line with some of the earlier comments of the meeting tonight, it would maximize taxpayer value through shared resources and planning. This plan will help ensure that each municipality remains compliant, efficient, and responsive to the evolving needs of our communities. And I'll gladly answer any questions on the fire master plan.
Okay, questions, Jerry?
Yeah, thanks, Chief. Who would be involved? Council, staff, firefighters, public? I know we did obviously the recreation master plan. We invited numerous groups. Just curious as who would be involved.
I think everybody that you mentioned, Councillor Smith. Last year, the Township of Perth South completed a fire master plan, so we were involved in that, and I do know that they reached out to our fire advisory committee, so they did reach out to elected officials, firefighters, obviously our full-time staff, and the public. So I think the broader selection of people that we could ask will get more information and more data to help us have a more fulsome fire master plan.
Okay. Andrew?
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks for the report, Chief Hunter. I'm just wondering, it's a lot of these points sound familiar, and I may have the legislation incorrect, but the community safety well-being plan, I think that might be it, but I believe it covers a lot of this stuff as it is. Will there be any ability to share information from those two? The community safety well-being plan talks about, needed infrastructure and things like that. I don't think we've done that yet. I haven't seen it at the fire board. But it specifically the part for fire, is there any way that information will be shared maybe to mitigate the cost of either of those things? Or I may have butchered the name of the plan, but I think you know what.
No, that's the community safety and well-being plan certainly isn't specific to fire services. We do play a part, certainly smaller part than police would. You may be thinking about the community risk assessment. Every municipality in the province is required to do a community risk assessment once every 5 years. Ours was completed in 2024. It's currently being reviewed by our own staff for some 2025 updates. That risk assessment would be part of the fire master plan but we would not be proposing to have the consultants prepare another one to try and keep the costs down.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Consensus that this go forward? Okay, thank you. Thanks, Bill.
Great, thanks very much.
Moving now to Parks, Recreation, and Community Services. Becky?
Thanks, Mayor Rhonda. We're looking to replace the grease traps in both the concession and the kitchen hall, the hall kitchen. Both are around $5,000 each. The difference between them is just the sizing of them. They're basically coming to the end of their life where they're starting to corrode and that doesn't make them work properly then. So that's the request for $10,750.
Any questions on that? Consensus, good idea. Okay, yes, then we will go to the community replacement of the existing pool heaters.
Yeah, so this is, we haven't replaced these heaters in, I believe, I'm not even going to say the year because I can't remember now. It's been a while since we've actually replaced them, so they have come to the end of their life. For two of them to work for our pool size would be $12,000.
Okay, any questions on that? Looks good. Okay, and then the other one, the addition, the painting of the tower.
Yeah, so that was actually brought up at last year's budgeting vision where I said I'll be bringing forth this. So it's painting of not only the tower, but also all of the entire building, banquet hall and arena, just due to the fading of the of the siding and that. So I think it was, I don't have the report in front of me, but I think it was 68,000. Oh, there it's on the screen.
Okay, any questions, Jerry?
No, when I first read it, just the tower, I went, oh, that's a lot for just the tower, but it's the entire.
It's the entire building.
Andrew?
Just a technical thing, where does this fund from? Items like this? Like, is it,
From reserves.
oh, so it's not part of asset management money that's already been for upkeep? Just curious, I'm just curious where it comes from. Like a specific reserve or capital? Unless I missed it on here, sorry if I did.
No, I don't think it's on there. Can you scroll up a bit? Up, down? Sorry,
They're up.
capital reserves.
Okay, well, that's fine, thanks.
Paula.
Okay. All right, everyone good with that? Okay. Then we have no correspondence, no new business. We have our confirmatory bylaw. Well, we do have a motion now. And it says that bylaw 30-2025 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council of the Township of Perth East at its special meeting held on July 8, 2025 be read a first, second, and third time. Moved by Hugh, second by Jerry, all in favor. Carried, and the last motion of the night is to adjourn at 9:26 p.m. Moved by Amanda, second by Hugh, all in favor. Carried. Thanks, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Bye.